The last third of the 30s was marked by a new wave of political repressions, which took on a massive character. The strengthening of the cult of Stalin's personality and the impatience of all kinds of dissents, attempts to declare all the difficulties of the country's development as the result of the activities of enemies of the people, led to the physical elimination of almost all influential leaders who could form a opposition to the ruling regime, leading party and Soviet workers. To begin punitive measures against the Kazakh national intelligentsia, Stalin's letter was received directly. I am entirely in favor of attracting non-party intellectuals to Soviet work. On May 29 in 1925, in a letter sent to Almaty and playing a fatal role in the fate of the Kazakh intelligentsia, I am also in favor of non-partisans being involved in the cause of planting Kyrgyz culture and strongly against them being allowed to fight on the political and ideological front. I am against non-party intellectuals engaging in the political and ideological education of Kyrgyz youth. From 1937 to 1938, Traraskulov, Nurmanov, Khodjanov, Kulumbetov, Osayev, Ojandosov, Dosov, Asylbekov, Sadvakasov, Shurgenov, and many others were accused of national fascism and espionage. The most prominent figures of culture and science, Bukikhanov, Baytursun, Dulatula, Tanashbayula, Jumabay, Seyfulin, Zhangursunov, Maylin, Asfindiarov, Kemengerov, and many others were also repressed. The charges brought against them were absurd. In particular, they were declared guilty of the agriculture crisis, the uprising of the 20s and 30s, ties with Japanese intelligence, an attempt to secede from Kazakhstan, and etc. In Karaganda and a number of districts, demonstrative open trials of enemies took place, but most of them were convicted by extrajudicial bodies. The number of people arrested in 1937 in Kazakhstan reached to 105,000 people, of whom 22,000 were shot. The execution of the intelligentsia were called the highest measure of social protection, and the concentration camps that filled the country were a place of social prevention. In the late 30s to early 40s, the process of forced resettlement of the people to Kazakhstan took a large scale during the war years. Koreans from the Far East, Poles from the western regions of Ukraine and Belarus, Germans from the Volga region. The struggle against imaginary enemies of the people contributed to the creation of a dense network of Gulag concentrations, like Karlag, Zeblag, Algiers. There were more than 18,000 women in the barracks of Algeria, and they were kept in terrible conditions. Later, the places of mass burial of the executed people began to be revealed. One of them was accidentally discovered near Almaty in Janalaqariya, where thousands of innocent victims of totalitarianism were secretly buried, including famous writers and poets, Shumabayev, Seyfulin, Zhangursunov, Maylin, outstanding scientists Baytursunov, Asfindiarov, major state and public figures, heads of farms, the leaders of production. The composition of the repressed was multinational. Kazakhs, Poles, Russians, Germans, Koreans, Uyghurs, Uzbeks, and others. In the mid-15th, after Stalin's death and various arrests, the process of reviewing and cancelling against innocent convicts who were in the camps gradually began. Many of them were released, and those who had already been shot and killed were posthumously rehabilitated. The universal rehabilitation of victims of political repression is evidence of the complete failure of the repressive policy of the Soviet state, of its punitive practice carried out in the 1920 to 1950, which was unreasonable and illegal. In Kazakhstan, the number of victims of political repression during the years of Soviet power, according to scientists, amounted to 3.5 million people. However, this figure is not precise, since the fate of many people arrested in the 20s and 40s still remains unknown. It can be seen that Stalin's mass repression had a huge footprint in people's mind. However, a majority of interviewed people didn't precisely know about the scale of the terrible situation. The number of victims and camps created probably blew their mind, and that's why half of them weren't sure if the given shocking numbers are true. The charts represent that the results of this tragedy are so horrifying that it was even difficult to believe in them.